Welcome to the Dig Endurance Podcast, where we are all about digging deep and discovering the power of emotional resilience. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined by my brother, Shaun.
As endurance athletes and business owners, we have learned a thing or two about facing and overcoming adversity. We are here to share inspiring stories from our guests that will help you to find that inner strength when you feel like you are running on empty.
Are you ready? Let's dig in.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dig Endurance Podcast. We're super excited today. We've got CJ Albertson with us. CJ's a local guy here in the community of Fresno, the Central Valley. He is a marathon runner. He went to Buchanan, graduated from Buchanan, went to college at Arizona State. We'll let him dive into that. But long story short is last weekend, CJ had quite the showing at the Olympic trials. He took fifth overall.
Incredible.
And he was a minute behind the win. Was it even a minute?
Yeah, right around a minute behind the win, and then 10 seconds behind third. So
wow.
So, yeah, 10
Unbelievable.
seconds from,
Right
from
there.
the Olympic spot.
And he's
yeah.
young. There's 10 more Olympic trials to come. The best part about CJ is Aaron and I are big runners. You know, we like to do our thing. I see CJ, geez, I don't know, twice a month on the trail. What's it called? Is it the Lewis Eaton, or what's the trail where
Wilbur Park?
you were doing
the
a
Eaton
tempo
trail.
run? You were on a tempo run like 2 weeks ago, and I saw you. I gave you a high five on the hill. You probably don't even know who I am. But he looked like he was a machine running. But anyways, CJ's here in the community. We really wanted to have him on, kind of talk to him about his progress so far, where he's at, what his goals are after finishing so close to the top in the nation, and what that looks like for him.
So you went, Shaun, as Shaun said, you went to Buchanan. When did you graduate?
2012.
2012. Okay. So it's been over 10 years now.
Yeah.
So you ran at the high school level?
Yeah.
Before? Okay. Cross country, track?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I started in elementary school, actually, and then just kind of went through the close unified system, running in junior high, and then through high school.
Okay.
And then into college.
Very cool. And then Arizona State, cross country?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess from Arizona State, like the time you graduated, when, or was it during Arizona State when you started with marathons? Like when did the marathons kick in?
Well, even more, what successes did you see before you hit the marathon? And then to his question,
That's a better way to ask it.
How did high school, college, what you did there, what you saw, how did that translate into, because marathons
share some of your experience and accomplishments during that time, and then what led to the marathon distance from there, I guess. Yeah, that's better said.
Yeah, I mean, the marathon, it wasn't always what I envisioned myself doing. In high school, I think I was like a lot of high schoolers. I thought I was a miler, but that's kind of typical. But that's, my first couple of years of high school, I had most success in the mile. And so, that's what I thought I was. And then, I had decent success in high school. I won a Valley Championship in cross country, a Valley Championship in track. My best finish was fourth in cross country at state. I was never on the podium in track. I don't remember what I finished, maybe 9th or 10th.
Okay.
So I had good success, but I wasn't like a top guy in the nation. I ran a couple national meets. I think my best finish in cross country nationals was 36th.
Still pretty dang good.
Yeah, so I was good, but not like this like phenom or someone you're like, oh, he's gonna maybe go to the Olympics. Yeah, it's just like I was a very good runner, and that enabled me to get a scholarship at Arizona State. There, I was a good college runner. I wasn't not anything spectacular. I ran 13:50 in the 5K, which was good, but it wasn't good enough to really get you anything. Like I couldn't make the national meet.
So interesting to hear amazing. I love it when I hear amazing people say they're not good enough, because I'm sitting here like, then what are we? Like,
but that goes
very
along
humbling.
with the story.
Very humbling.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, again, like it was good, but like, basically to make the national meet, like being top 24 in the country, like it wasn't good enough for that.
I understand. Sorry, I just had to knock Shaun and myself. That's all. Normal people like us.
Yeah. So again, like I was a you know, a very good runner, but I wasn't like a great runner or like
Sure.
someone that you would, you know the name of. And there was definitely a whole nother tier of athletes, you know, quite above me. And so when I graduated college, you know, I wasn't anywhere near the level like to go pro. And at the time I wasn't even thinking about marathon. So, you know, I wasn't thinking about that route. But as far as like track, cross country, 5K, 10K distances, I just, I could have kept running, but I wasn't good enough to like make it a profession.
Had you even done a half marathon at this point?
No. I mean, I had ran like that distance, but I had never raced one. Because in college,
They're just training.
Yeah, in college it goes up like basically goes up to 10K.
Okay.
Which is the longest race. So, and even the 10K, I never really raced the 10K or like trained for specifically. I was more like I did the steeplechase, which is 3,000 meters, and then the 5K. So I wasn't. I mean, I was a longer distance runner, but not like I wasn't just like focused on the 10K, like the longest distance. So, yeah, the marathon didn't come later until a little over a year after college. I had moved back to Fresno, and I just wanted to do the Two Cities Marathon here. Just, I mean, just kind of for fun. I mean, like I took it, like I wanted to run fast, but I wasn't like trying to be a professional or like really do anything. I was just
okay. Let's do this.
Yeah, I got a coaching job, so I was around runners and.
So this is like 16, 17, 18?
This is the fall of 2018.
18, okay.
Yeah, so my teaching position was part-time, so I had, a decent amount of free time. And so I just signed up for the Two Cities Marathon just to run one, just because like I feel like a lot of runners, if you've run a long time, it's like, oh, I got to do at least one marathon.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the mentality. And then as I started training for it, training was going pretty well. I'm like, oh, I think I can actually run fairly fast, maybe even qualify for the Olympic trials. And then, so it was kind of like a surprise.
I thought he was going to say Boston. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Wow.
It was a little bit, yes, which was like initially a little bit of a surprise, but like, the training just went really well for whatever
Solo training
reason.
Or coached?
Yeah, solo training.
Solo training,
And
okay.
then, and then I did qualify for the trials. I ran like 2:17, that first one in Two Cities.
Did you win?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 2018. So, and then, that's basically how it all got started. And then I was like, oh, I guess I'm at least a pretty decent marathoner.
How do I ask this question? What I like? Because you're saying you had decent success in college, like not enough to go pro, but decent success. Yeah. I mean, obviously you bridged some kind of gap there. I mean, obviously at the marathon level, but I mean, did you push yourself more than you had like at the college level? Did something change? Do you feel like you just grew more into your body? I mean, like what changed, I guess, in a couple of years' time? You don't just happen on a 2:17 marathon time your first go. I mean, obviously you have running experience, but that's also a way longer distance. I mean, do you feel like I don't know, did you change anything? I mean, or I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think a part of it is like there's got to be, some sort of genetic aspect where like I was maybe naturally had some sort of skills or makeup or something that was just made me better at the marathon. So then when I started to do the training for it, I could handle, higher mileage and my legs didn't break down as much towards the latter end of like longer runs and things.
So you kind of tapped into that favorability that you could feel in your body as you started delving more into the training.
Yeah, like I was just able to do kind of marathon type workouts or like things that like maybe experienced marathoners would do. I was able to do like fairly quickly, almost like right away in training.
Gotcha.
So like there wasn't like much of a transition from like going to like running like 5Ks in college to like running the marathon. Sometimes it takes people years to get that transition, but for me, I think just the natural makeup of my body and maybe, I don't know, just, I'm not exactly sure why, but it just came like very quickly and naturally. So
good for you.
That was like, that's on like the physical side. As far as like work and stuff, I think it's not that I like didn't work hard, but I don't know. The mindset was like a lot less intense than it was like in college, because I feel
Interesting.
like in college you're like really focused. You know, you have all these races. you have this season of like, okay, I have like this big race. I have like this conference championship, this regionals. I'm trying to make nationals. Like you're like you're really focused, and like there's lots of races, and just like it's a really big part of your life, and you put a lot into it, both mentally and physically, emotionally, all that. When you're kind of just, you know, what I call at the time just kind of like hobby jogging, like it's you take it seriously, but it's also a hobby.
Well, you're only accountable to yourself. You're not accountable to the school, to the other coaches.
Yeah, you don't have teammates. And it's just like I'm just doing this for fun, just because I just want to do it. And so, I mean, I did actually end up training more. Like my mileage, or the amount that I ran, was more than what I ran in college. And I don't know if my workouts probably weren't harder. They were just different because I was training for a marathon. But it was just a very relaxed, like, kind of approach or mindset as I was.
It's interesting.
As I was training, and that it's not the only factor, but that might have been one of the factors that actually led to more successes. Wasn't necessarily that I was
less pressure on yourself, maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily that I was like trying less or like not working as hard, but a level of relaxation. Yeah, the psychological work was a lot less.
I got you.
And then
that makes sense.
I think when the psychological or the mental and emotional work is less, then it allows you to do so much more physically. So you actually can train, quote, harder, or you can harder. I feel like there's so much connotation with harder. So you can train more, and you can do more, and you can physically even push yourself. You can physically do things at a higher level when emotionally and mentally
you're more relaxed.
You're giving less.
Yeah,
and it's very difficult to find that, because it's like, you know, physically doing a lot is hard and sometimes requires a lot of psychological energy. So how do you like give little energy mentally, but get this? It's hard, but for whatever reason, in that first round, it kind of worked out for me and set me up for later success.
That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I coach a few athletes, and when they take days off, and so they're not elite, but they're great. They qualified for Boston by 10 minutes, this and that. And when they take days off or they're busy, you know, one's an attorney, like take the day off, just sleep, go be with your family, take a trip, whatever it is. I think one of the most under talked about is kind of what you were talking about, is people like hear the word cortisol and it's like, oh, that's from a textbook, right? We're going to ignore that stuff. But when you're coaching yourself or whatever your situation is, people don't understand that those chemicals are very much so running in your body.
Yeah, stress has a negative impact.
Running in your body, even though you don't consciously feel it, it absolutely makes a difference. When you sleep a couple extra hours, it totally makes a difference. Even for just us having fun athletes. You know, so when you're out there talking about things like, hey, this is me doing it, it's a little bit different. You're the one that's accountable for it. You're not even accountable to a coach when you're just starting. It's just more enjoyable. And your body is enjoying it versus like, gosh, this sucks. I don't want to do this. Sure. Like I've got 26 hours worth of stuff to do in 22 hours today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you won the two cities then, your first marathon, and that was a 2:17.
Yeah.
And did you set a goal for yourself for that first race, or was it just, hey, let's see what I can do, or what?
Once I had gotten into like the middle of training, my goal became to qualify for the Olympic trials, which at the time that year you had to run under 2:19.
Just one time, and you're in.
Yeah. There's like a qualifying window, so if you hit the time within the window that they set up, it's usually like 2 years before the trials.
Okay.
And so you kind of have that period.
Made it by 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think I ran. I was 2:17:45, so I had
awesome.
A little over a minute.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that no one else has qualified for the Olympic trials in the two cities marathon.
They have actually this
Really?
year. This year, a guy from San Diego ran in it, and he qualified.
And you qualified too. Oh, that's cool. So there's two of you. So what? Okay, so you qualified for your first Olympic trials, 2:17 in the two cities. And where'd you go from there? You went to the Olympic trials that year, and
so that was fall 2018, and then the Olympic trials was February 2020. So there was about 15 months in between.
Okay.
So in 2019.
That's a big jump. first marathon, and then all of a sudden Olympic trial. I mean, that's
So
a big jump of what do I need to do?
So 2019, I was just doing different races.
Marathons.
Yeah, I did. I had a 3-week span where I did a marathon in Modesto, just a real small marathon. But I ran 2:16 there, and then the next week I ran a 10-mile race in Sacramento, and then the week after was this indoor marathon in New York that I like heard about really last minute, and so I just kind of signed up for it last minute because you could win money basically if
On
you,
a track?
Yeah, it's on an indoor track. And
Interesting.
they call it like the indoor mile or the indoor marathon world record.
Okay.
So if you set that, like, there was prize money for it. So
Did you win it?
yeah,
Nice.
I ended up winning it. So it was just kind of like a spur of the moment thing. And I went and I
Did you set the world record though?
Yeah, I set the record.
Amazing.
So, so that was a fun experience, and those were kind of like 3 races, like all in a row. And then I then kind of just like went back into training for a while. November 2019, I ran the 2 cities marathon again, mostly just like somewhat in training.
Yeah.
Because my big race was CIM that fall, and then I ran 2:13 at CIM and was second there.
Wow.
And that was like my last big race before the trials.
Yeah.
And then that gave me some confidence because I was second. I lost by I don't know, 4 seconds. I don't, or it was close.
At CIM?
Maybe it was 10 seconds. I don't know, but it was a really close race. Yeah. And yeah, I only lost to a Kenyan athlete who had run. I believe he had run under 2:10, so he was like a pretty legit guy, and I was pretty much with him the whole way. So even though my time wasn't like 2:10 or 2:11 like a lot of Americans that ran, I was like, well, I just ran with a guy that's run those times, and
Incredible.
he barely beat me in a tactical race. So
Sure.
it gave me some confidence going into the Olympic trials that okay, maybe I can run faster maybe.
Yeah.
So and then a few months later was the Olympic trials, a pretty hilly course.
Where was it that
windy
year?
day in Atlanta.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, and
Are you married yet at this time?
yeah, I got married in college, so
Oh, okay.
I've been
All right.
married this whole time.
Did you meet her in college, or is she from Fresno?
She's from Santa Clarita.
Okay, cool.
And she went to Arizona State.
Gotcha.
She ran cross country and track too.
Do you have any kids yet at this time?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, so we got we got married going into my 5th year and going into her senior
Okay.
year.
Oh, cool.
So that was in 2016.
All right.
So yeah, we've been married with 3. It was our 3rd year of marriage, but no kids.
Okay.
Yet.
Gotcha.
And then and then the 2020 came. My wife actually ran in the 2020 Olympic trials too.
I didn't know. That's cool.
Yeah, she was a good runner at Arizona State, and then she didn't really plan on doing marathons, but I kind of was doing them. And
let me try this out too.
Kind of talked her into doing the indoor marathon with me, and then she qualified at CIM, and her brother and sister-in-law had run marathons, and her sister.
So
it was a whole family of runners.
So what was her time?
She ran 2:43 at CIM.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Incredible. So you both went to the Olympic trials in 2020 together?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And that was part of
That's
it was
amazing.
like the Atlanta was paying for shared rooms, and like I knew like she was going to come with me, and they were paying like for most of your travel too. So I was like, and we didn't have any money at the time. So I was just like, Chelsea, you gotta qualify so that we can
So we go together.
we can room together and you can have a free flight. So like, will save us like $1,000 or something.
At least.
Yeah, and like I mean,
I
given
wish
we made
I wish saving $1,000 was enough motivation for me to run a 2:40 marathon.
Well, when when we were making
that.
like less than 30,000 a year at the
Right.
time, it's like this is a big chunk right here.
Yeah,
So,
you gotta
for
do.
sure.
And I mean, obviously the experience is cool, and she wanted to.
for sure.
That's really cool that you both
but-
qualified. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was really fun traveling with her. We're both competing. Like that weekend was just like, even before the race was just like so fun.
Yeah.
Just me and her being there and just like running at the Olympic trials is just really cool to do together. And then I just had a really good race. Ended up running 2:11:49.
Amazing.
And I ended up being 7th. And so, that's kind of when I like transitioned it from being like a good marathoner that was kind of just like still kind of doing it for fun but trying to be serious, and then like after the Olympic trials I was able to get a pro contract with Brooks and kind of like,
Amazing.
I guess, kick things into like another phase of competitive running.
That's amazing. Okay, so 7th place, 2020.
That's quite the transition.
Didn't know your wife went
very,
with you.
very quick.
Yeah. So then, I mean, I'm assuming after 2020, I mean, 7th is a really strong finish. And then, I mean, the goal was just like, okay, I imagine the ultimate goal is to go to the Olympics and run the marathon. I mean, is that, and so, I mean, how much do you want to speak to? I guess 4 years is a long time. How do you want to speak to your preparation, how that changed or what you did in between 2020 and 2024 to try to push to that?
That's it's 4 years.
Yeah. And we had, because COVID basically started a week and a half.
I wasn't thinking about COVID. Yeah,
10
right.
10 days after the Olympic trials
right.
It started. So it was weird because I basically signed to go, with Brooks, and then it was like, well, now we don't have any races, and it was just a weird time. And like when I signed was actually like, I think March or April, and so we didn't really know how long everything was gonna last. And after signing with Brooks, like I really didn't meet anybody because like we couldn't travel and go, and it was just like, so that was kind of weird. And then I also got hired to be full-time at Clovis Community College because I had been a part-time professor just teaching a class or two.
That's a huge year for you.
And then coaching, and then I was able to get hired full-time. But then that was also weird because normally you have all this like kind of new staff development, like onboarding stuff, like all this kind of first year things, like, all right, this is how you do.
And you couldn't do any of that in person.
This is how you do all the stuff that you now do as a full time with, for your department that like, adjunct people aren't doing. And I didn't really like, because no one could meet. So like I'd get a little bit here and there on Zoom, but like it was just,
weird time.
Just trying to figure it out. Yeah. So it was a weird time. I got like these 2 new positions, but they were both kind of like, not even going, or like it was just weird. And then we bought a house, and so there's just like a lot of changes really fast. So that was like 2020 was just like a whole like transition year of different things, and then even 2021 there wasn't really much going on. Then in fall of 2021 things kind of started to open up, be a little bit normal again. We started back having a cross country season with. At Clovis Community, so I could get back into normal coaching, and then and actually teaching in person full time, and like figuring out that. And then Boston was in the fall that year, and that in that race.
Was that the famous CJ Boston?
Yeah, that was the one where I ended up
you were
leading
drafting off of the super tall guy, and they showed him like
that was at the Olympic trials.
Oh,
but in Boston, I was
the best.
Out by myself leading for like 20 miles. And
I shouldn't have said drafting. I didn't mean drafting. Yeah. Running behind. It was great. His faces were great.
But yeah, okay, I ended up, having like a 2-minute lead at the halfway point in Boston of 2021 and held the lead for like a little over 20 miles. And so that was when it was like,
I kind of got this guy.
Yeah. And then from there, I've run Boston a couple of times and done like some bigger races and run some fast times.
How did you go about selecting, which races? First of all, I guess, are you still self-coached or are you coaching with somebody else? And or does Brooks work with you to like, how does the race selection work, I guess, for you up until 2024, to lead yourself up to qualify for the Olympics?
Yeah, in the 2020 trials, I had met the elite coordinator for the Boston Marathon, and so she kind of came up to me after the race and was, we just introduced herself. We got connected, and she was like, you're a person that would probably do well at Boston, so we'd love to have you there. And so I just kind of remember that, and then like later on, when stuff was starting to open back up and they announced that they were going to have a Boston, I had emailed her and was like, I'd like to run this. And so that was kind of how I got into Boston. And then once I did Boston, it was an amazing race, so it made sense to go back. And then I did just pick some other races here and there. Last year, or in 2022, I went to the Valencia Marathon, which is a really fast marathon in Spain. That didn't end up going very well. I had some stomach issues very early on and had to drop out very early in the race. And then,
Is that the one that's super humid or no?
No.
No. Okay.
It's a really fast, good
Okay.
conditions, great race.
Okay.
I ended up finding another marathon in Spain the next week and went and ran that just because I was like, I've trained all this, I like traveled all this way.
Look, I'm ready.
I want to like run something.
Yeah.
So I just did another race. But yeah, so race selection, I mean, Brooks doesn't like tell me what to race. I mean, obviously, if I am going to enter a race, like,
You'll let them
I
know.
tell them.
Yeah.
And because sometimes, they'll do like some promo stuff or things with it, especially if it's a big race like Boston.
Right.
They usually have some sort of presence there.
Cool.
So yeah, it's more just like me like informing them like, okay, what am I doing?
Gotcha.
Where am I going?
So how do you how do you go about selecting your races, and what's your parameters? I mean, what are you choosing? I guess, like, are you preferring like more flat courses? I mean, is there a certain type of things you're looking for to prep you for the Olympic trials that your selection criteria, I guess?
It's not always like in prep for the Olympic trials. It's just
To do it?
different reasons. Some races are just somewhat, for fun. Like they seem like good races.
Yeah.
Some races will be dependent on like appearance fees. So like like the bigger races will offer like appearance fees, and so a lot of times the American races will like you can get a much larger appearance fee in an American major like
a Boston or New York.
Yeah, Boston,
or
New
Chicago.
York, Chicago.
Okay.
But like if I were to go to like Berlin or London, at least at the level I'm at like right now, like probably not going to get much. They may pay for my travel or something, but it's probably not going to be a
That's awesome.
large appearance fee because like I'm not like in the UK, like I'm not big,
Gotcha. Sure.
Unless I was like, if I was like an Olympic medalist or had run like 204 or
Gotcha.
something, then
Sure.
yeah, I might get paid a good amount. But so
You still run two cities, right? Like you did this last one?
Yeah.
So they probably
I have.
love that. I'm sure they're thrilled to have you. I mean, and obviously
Yeah.
as a local guy too, but that's a huge win for them to be able to have you.
I was behind him for like the whole time until like a minute till the finish.
Yeah, me too.
I was on my bike, Aaron. I was on my bike.
That's awesome. Anyway, you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, but so that's a big factor. And then in my contract with Brooks, like some races I can earn bonuses for, like for winning or for placing things. So yeah, some of it comes down like finances, like making money and getting the most out of my contracts. And I try, when I'm negotiating my contract too, I try to like set up races that I would want to do anyways, so that I'm getting like, okay, these are good opportunities, good races for me, but I can also maximize the amount that I'm making with those.
Good.
And then sometimes things will just be, mostly just for fun or just to like get a race in.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't have this like grandmaster plan. It's just, just gonna race this.
Keep getting better and
Yeah.
So leading up to last week, I mean, I think what I've seen is, you've been on a pretty steady progression downward. I mean, since you started, from what I can tell, generally speaking, I mean, you've pretty much steadily been getting a little bit faster over the last few years. Is that not accurate? I mean,
Somewhat. I think I've been, overall, like, yeah, I've gotten like a little bit faster or like more consistent.
Yeah.
But I mean, since the Olympic trials in 2020, like, I've run I ran 2:10:07 in this race. So I ran between 2:10:07 and 2:11:49 like 10 times. So it's like I've kind of ran a lot of the same times kind of over and over again, but they've been in lots of different ways, like vastly different splits at the halfway, like sometimes going out really fast, sometimes going out more even, sometimes in hilly races, sometimes in flat races, sometimes in perfect conditions, sometimes in hot conditions. So every marathon race is so different. It's kind of hard, like not all the time. Like you might run the same time, but it may be completely different.
Sure.
So yeah, overall, I think I've been getting faster. Not quite had that breakthrough that I would want.
but trending the right way.
Yeah, definitely trending the way we're in. Definitely not getting slow. I've been very, very consistent and always,
for sure.
pretty much always done well, like done at least average.
Yeah.
In the races that I've ran.
So was the last few years just tuning into all those things, like you said? The temperature. I don't know, just the various things that all the little like there's a story I'm familiar with. I think I want to say it's the England like biking team that like they ended up taking Tour de France for like, it was like I think almost a 10-year span, but their whole shtick was like, they were like fine tuning the littlest, tiniest things.
Just the 1%.
Yeah. Like the 1%, it was 1% each time they were just trying to, and as long as it got them slightly faster, ultimately it was going to take them to a W. I mean, is that kind of somewhat to what you're spending your time the last few years, just kind of notching those little things that, hey, if I can get me a few seconds here, a few seconds there. I mean, were you getting kind of nitty gritty, or is it just more like, I don't know. I mean, did it get that technical? Does that make sense what I'm asking, I guess?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Well, one, you always have to train to like the race and the conditions that you're going to be racing in, and those are always going to be different in every race. So every training block will look maybe a little bit different or have different components.
Like you might be on a treadmill with like chicken coop lights for sometimes.
Exactly.
Freaking awesome.
And then,
Love it.
yeah, but then like also like with my life, like just coaching, having 2 kids, being married, having a full-time teaching coaching job, like it's just not every training block is going to be the same as far as just like energy levels.
Sure.
And so like my training changes more just based off what I'm able to like kind of mentally and emotionally energy wise handle. So like, the training that I do may not always be like the best training plan that I would physically write down in a ideal vacuum type world.
Yeah.
But my training is more flexible and fluid and different based on like where I'm at
Gotcha.
in my life circumstances at the time.
Yeah.
You're still self-coached.
Yeah. So
That's
I've
impressive.
had
That's really impressive.
I've worked
Wow.
for a brief time. I worked with a coach that was really great. It was just kind of bad timing. He had some health issues, and it was remote coaching, but
Sure.
So it just didn't work out at the time. But I mean, I try to take as much like knowledge from other coaches and coaches in the past and people that I've worked with or even people I haven't worked with, but like I know what their training philosophies are, and I try to mend that in. But like I guess because of my my life circumstances, there has to be just a lot of like flexibility and making the best of, or making it work for my situation, I guess.
Sure.
And so a lot of times I'm not doing the training or workouts that on paper would seem to be the best, but I'm doing what is going to be realistically like be the best on that day.
Yeah. Well, and then back to your original point, it sounds like you, for yourself, I mean, just like anything else, you got to go by feel at some point. I mean, there is the science, but there's also like what feels best for you. And like if it's keeping you in that Zen state, in that zone state where you can feel relaxed and like your body's not and your soul is not all stressed out, that's a winning place for you. And probably for most people, for anybody. So, I mean, you got to go with that. I mean, right? So
I have a couple questions. So one, when you're in Boston and you were that far ahead, which was awesome. I watched the whole thing. Genuine question. When you're at that point and you're like at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and you're like, you've got people like Kipchoge and stuff who are like with you. Are you like, hey, I can do this? Are you like, hey, I know I'm not going to make it, but at least I can make it to 23? Are you like what are you honestly thinking when you're there at mile 18? You're like national television, Boston, like what? You've never been in like this spot with literally the best in the world. What are you telling yourself? Like, are you even saying anything to yourself, or are you just like
in the zone?
I'm just curious.
I mean, probably all of it. Like sometimes you're saying, like, I'll have the thoughts like, oh, like I might be able to win. Like I had this lead, and then you're also thinking, oh, like they're gonna catch me at some point. For a lot of it, you're just like not trying to like have thought, like you're not trying to think about all that. So you're just trying to have like a blank mind. But yeah, especially in that race, since it was like such a unique experience, like I had, all those thoughts, but you're just trying to like, you can't necessarily control all the thoughts that come in. So like, it's more just when you're in a race like that, you have thoughts that come in, and then you try not to let those thoughts like stay stay in and evoke too much of an emotional response. So like you want to stay pretty like just balanced and almost kind of boring like in a marathon.
Sure.
And so like sometimes like there's a certain place where you can draw on emotions to like get you to the next level or like push you keep going. And that can be important on the very later stages. But for most of it, it's just like, I might have thoughts of like, oh, I could win, but I don't want to get too excited here. So it's like, I might have that thought, but then I just let it kind of pass. Or like, oh, they may catch me, but I'm trying not to be like worried or anxious about that. And so it's just trying to just keep your mind as quiet as possible so your body, again, has more energy to run a marathon.
Yeah. Right. So my next question that follows that is you finished Boston, you do well, you had the lead, you fell back a few or whatever it was, you're still way up there. Olympic trials, very close to the top. I mean, place or not, within a minute. When you're done with each race, right, you know what's ahead of you, you already know that. How long does it take you to reset? Like, okay, suck up the fifth, even though it's really good? Or do you even suck it up? Or are you just like, I'm going to go running and, I do see your Strava, so I know you're running with less than 24 hours. Usually you're back in Fresno pretty quick, which is also very impressive. Is that just it? Or are you just like, all right, that's where I'm at. This is how good I am. What do I do? Feel my body like Aaron was talking about and just freaking... you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's usually like a transition period to where you're, I may be like still like going in to train for the next race or like in this circumstance, like I'm going back into just normal life, normal work week, running, coaching, teaching, being with the kids, I'm back in like normal routine day-to-day life. But then at the same time, like it's still the race is still really fresh. So I'm still thinking about it a little bit. I may be doing things like this where I have some podcasts or like interviews or just stuff, where I'm talking about the race. And then like that slowly fades, whereas like your outside circumstances, like people talk about the race less, like I'm being asked about the race less, and then internally, I'm kind of thinking about it less and less, but it's no like distinct like, oh, like I'm moving on, now I'm doing something else, and like it just cuts off. It's more just like it's all blended together. So like you go back into daily life, but you're still also kind of, it's still fresh in your mind. And so
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So last week, just describe, how did it feel? Watching the clips that I've seen, it's pretty exciting. For me, you were in the best place psychologically that I like to be when I run. Not that I run anywhere near your level. I'm just saying whenever I do a race, I try to put myself in the position. It's huge for me psychologically to be passing people and to like be, gaining. That's always a good feeling. At least I feel like it is. So how did that feel? Just how did it feel last week? How would you describe the race? How was the experience culminating with the 5th place finish? I don't know. How would you sum that up? How did it feel last week?
I feel like the experiences are all like almost always in these big marathons, just like really fun. There's so much like work that goes into it, and like the organizing committees and like the hospitality of the of the event organizers, like in pretty much every big race I've done, is just like it's hard to even explain if you haven't been there, but it's just like it's just really good, and it makes like a really fun event. And then being around just like a bunch of other people like trying to accomplish the same goal. I guess could be a little like nerve-wracking, but like for me it's exciting and fun. And then just all the people just kind of like beforehand that are like supporting me, just like wishing me luck, and just saying they're, or like people I don't even know like picking me to be in top 3 or thinking I'm gonna win. Like it's just like there's just like so much support like from people that you do know, like your friends and your family and my coworkers and my sponsors like Brooks and everything. Like there's so much support from those people, but then like also just like people all around the country that like I don't know at all, but they're like seem so excited to watch me run and like thinking I'm gonna do well. It's just it's just like because a lot of times, like when I'm just like living, like when I'm running, especially since I'm training by myself, it's just really hard to like think that like that's a reality. Like in my mind, it's just like, I'm just like running and training and like, I guess like on some level, like I know other people are like watching me or following me, but like in the moment when I'm just like living day to day and like trying to get myself to go do this other run or whatever, it's like I'm just like kind of running. It doesn't really matter to anybody. Like,
right.
I'm just trying to convince myself it matters to me sometimes.
Sure.
Like it's just like I'm just like in kind of like my own little bubble in my own little world, and then it's like, and then I go to these like races, like wow, like, people like people like are kind of like invested in like how I'm going to do, and like not out of like pressure, like you have to do good or you're gonna let us all down, but just like they're just generally excited for me, and like just want to see me do well, like just out of like
we all are.
Well, I'm sure you've got your hometown Fresno Clovis people that are like,
we were texting all morning, we're all screenshotting and joking like there's
but
CJ.
I'm sure you've got your hometown people like, hey, go rep Fresno Clovis. I'm sure you've got your Arizona State people that are like, hey, go rep Arizona State. I mean, you've got your communities that I'm sure, they're all behind you.
Yeah, so that just, it's like, I guess you could feel like pressure from that, but it's more just like, oh wow, like this is like, it's not necessarily something that like I even want, but it's just like, okay, like this is just like a reality. This is just like
this is what's happening.
This is just like a reality, like in life, like people care about each other and like want people to do well. And so it's just like, which is just like a cool, I mean, humans don't always do great things, but we also do have this great, community, and can be very supportive. So that part is always really cool. And even though I know that, it still catches me off guard sometimes before races. Yeah. Just because, again, I go so long just kind of doing things just kind of by myself in my own head. And
I'm sure you see and feel that. I'm sure it culminates probably at one of its most strongest points when you're basically at the peak of the Olympic trials.
Yeah.
You can feel that.
But got some good motivation behind it too, right?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. And then the race itself was just crazy. I mean, we went out and it was kind of slow at the start. So, like, okay, someone's going to like pick up the pace. And then Zach Panning, the guy that went, I had followed his training. So right when he went to the front, I knew what pace he was going to settle into. And I knew that was going to stick for probably a while. Like he's just like, all right, this pace is too slow. I'm going to go run my own pace. And so I just tried to like follow the pack, conserve as much energy as I could. I was hoping it'd slow down a little bit sooner because that pace was a little bit out of my comfort zone. But there wasn't really another group that was running close enough to that pace that could keep me in contention.
There's just you guys up there.
Yeah, to where
other
I could
than Zach, and then which eventually turned into him falling back. But was there even anyone else up there with you guys?
There was like
5 or 6 of you guys, or 7?
No, there was a good. It was like probably like a 12-person group,
12?
I think. And so. Yeah, so like I mean I kind of had to go with that group, or else it just would have been too far behind. And you don't want to run by yourself the whole race because you're pushing against too much air resistance. It's just a lot harder.
I got you.
And so I went, and about 13 miles was just kind of like my max point. Like I fell off the pace. I just couldn't run with them anymore. And so I didn't drastically slow down, but I was getting gapped by them, and then I actually got passed by at least one person. Maybe 2, and I was in 12th for a while up until about a little bit before 7 miles to go. Then I passed one guy back, and then from there, the last 8 miles, people started to slow down, and so
how are you feeling at that point?
That's what you get for sticking to your plan.
I'm just trying to get like, at one point, just trying to get top 10. And then once I was like, okay, like I am in top 10. I saw 7th. Pretty far up the road, but I was like, all right, by the end of the race, like maybe I can be 7th. Because like the 6 at the time I couldn't see them at all. but 7th seemed like it could have been good. And then I ended up getting to 7th by about 22, maybe 23 miles. So I have about 3 miles left. And then I kind of thought it was just that was like, okay, the race is pretty much over. I don't think anyone's really gonna catch me because I was running decently well.
Let's give it everything I got, kind of a thing.
But everyone else I couldn't see anyone. I mean, they were just too far, and we only had, 15 minutes left in the race. Like there wasn't much. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, about between like a mile and a half to a mile left, I saw sixth, and then I saw fifth, and then shortly after that, I saw fifth, then fourth, then third. And I saw third maybe with like a mile ago, and they were still way up the road, but I could at least see something. Like I could see jerseys in the distance.
Yeah.
And I actually took my sunglasses off because like they had like water on them because I've been pouring water on myself.
Looks like you had new sunglasses too for the race. No?
Yeah, my mom got them for Christmas. I'd only worn them like once, but
nice.
I was like, I'll wear these. And then, but I couldn't. I had too much fog on them, so I like took them off.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that's people. Like they're up there, and I'm like, holy cow, that's third. Like that is the team or that is the person to like make it to the Olympics. Like
amazing.
They are in sight, and we only have like a mile left. So
right.
It's not a lot of time. So I just was like,
let's go.
And it was like crazy because like at that point I'd been running 13 miles by myself, just trying to stay in it, trying to keep myself in the race. But like, you're also really tired. In some sense, you're just trying to survive and finish decently because I had been dropped and I was out of it. And then all of a sudden, like
you're back
an
in the
hour
game.
Later, I'm back in it.
Yeah.
But not really. They're still far, but I can see they don't look good. So I'm just like trying to run as fast as I can.
Yeah.
And then, I end up getting within 5 seconds of fourth to within 10 seconds of third.
Wow.
And it just, obviously it was just a little bit too late, but yeah. And then I finished and I was like, wow, like I was fifth and I was 10 seconds off of making the Olympics. Like it doesn't even feel real when I say it because like I've never been to the Olympics. I've just kind of watched it on TV. It's still this like kind of far off thing. Yeah. And then it's like
now it's only 10 seconds off.
I was 10 seconds in a
4
2
years.
hour and 10 minute race. Like
in 4 years it won't be.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So what's next? So now, so now you know what your ability is. Now we're going to Boston, right?
Yeah. So I'll be back at Boston this year, and
that's in April.
Yeah.
And you're gonna win.
Hopefully the defending champion is back, and he's pretty good. But
who is it?
Evans Chebet.
Oh, he's only one of the best in the world. You got this. Come on, CJ.
That's incredible.
I can't wait to watch. I'm pumped.
So, what would you say, and just kind of in summary and wrapping up, you've got obviously still a lot ahead of you. And so much you've accomplished behind you to this point. I think you've shown a pretty steady, like I said earlier, consistent evidence of progression. You keep having these little notching steady wins and pushing yourself. I think you keep finding ways to push yourself a little further, which is super impressive. What have you psychologically, or your mantra, or your motivation? What's your advice to those people looking to do the same? I guess just to level up a little bit each race, a little bit each practice. Is it really that key thing is what you said earlier? Just, hey, stay relaxed, while still being focused, trying to find that balance between having the goal, but not stressing yourself out to hit it, kind of just finding that in between. Is that kind of the key, I guess? Is that from your point of view?
Yeah, that's definitely a really big part of it. And then also just psychologically, I guess recognizing that your dream or your goal or whatever you want to achieve always seems so much farther away until it isn't. And so, for me, like,
I love that.
Making the Olympic team seemed pretty far away, at one point. And then I got better and it gets a little bit closer. And then, but then even when I'm in training, like, you're 3 weeks out or 3 months out from the Olympic trials, it's like that day-to-day training, it's like that goal still seems like so far away because it's like, well, one, the race is a long ways away, but also it's like, do I really have a chance to make it? Or even if you feel like you kind of have a chance, it's like, it's just like, it's something that like you can't feel in the moment because it's this future far-off event that, in the back of your mind, you think probably isn't going to happen anyways. And then even within the race, it's like,
but you're still going to try.
Right.
Yeah. Even within the race, it's like, this is like so far away. Like I got dropped from the pack. I'm 12th. I'm like over a minute and a half behind third place. And then all of a sudden, like it ends up being really close.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of like, have that like relaxation, but also like train, like go through your day to day as if like you're already there. Cause like there's got to be some way to bridge the gap in your mind to be like, okay, where I want to be in the future, like is a lot closer than what I think it is. Like,
Yeah.
And so if you can somehow adopt a mindset that like you're already there or you're already like knocking on the door, it's easy. It's like, it's easy to take like the last couple steps. Like, I don't know if you're ever hiking, like who stops 50 meters from the top of the mountain?
Right.
When you get to 50 meters at the top of the mountain, it's still hard. It's probably the steepest part. It's always steepest at the top, but everyone makes it the last 50 meters. So like you can always keep going or push yourself a little bit more. And that 50 meters is usually one of the easiest 50 meters because you're like, oh, I'm right there. I just got to keep going. And it's like everything, this whole 12-hour event or this, maybe you've been training for 3 months, like, it's all coming together. So if you can like put your brain in a position to where like, okay, I'm 50 meters from the top. Like I'm right there. It's not this thing that's like way far that I'm never going to reach. Then it helps. And there may be like practical ways to do that, having like mini goals or having, different things that give you some wins along the way. I don't know, you guys maybe could know more psychological things or like that's like a very real, there's practical steps. But I think that's like the biggest thing is it's just so easy to get discouraged or so easy to stop because it's like, why am I going to put in all this work? It's so far. I'm never going to actually reach it.
Yeah.
But when you do get really close to reaching something, even if you don't reach it, it feels so good. It's always worth it.
Yeah.
It's just such a grind because it takes so long to get to that point. So
sure. But keep the mindset of how close you are, not how far away.
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that.
In my eyes, that's 98% there is going to give you 105% the next time.
Well,
plus lessons learned.
Thanks a ton for taking the time to be on with us. We really appreciate it. And of course, as local Fresno guys ourselves, we support you. We cheer for you. We root for you, and all the best going into Boston. Boston's the next race then. Yeah. Well, good luck, and we'll be following along, rooting for you. And thanks. Just thank you for being here.
CJ.
Really appreciate it.
Man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All the best. Have a good one. Thanks.